Misthological Models, Part 5, A Panoramic View of New Jerusalem. Chapter 1, New Jerusalem in the Historic Past. What did Old Testament saints, like Abraham, seek? By faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he lived as an alien in the land of promise, as in a foreign land. Notice, he is in the land of promise, and yet this is considered a foreign land. This is not what he's looking for. He's not looking for the promised land. He's dwelling there in this promised land with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs of the same promise, for he was looking for the city which has foundations, whose architect and builder is God. The writer of Hebrews will go on. This is Hebrews 11. To describe in what is called the Hall of Fame chapter various other Old Testament saints who were looking for the same thing. And then he will conclude, and all these, having gained approval through their faith, did not receive what was promised, because God had provided something better for us, so that apart from us they should not be made perfect. Hebrews 11:39-40. There are three interpretive approaches. One is to consider this an allegory. Some commentators follow Philo in treating this city as allegorical. Basically, it's to ignore what the writer of Hebrews is saying and say that the writer of Hebrews is wrong. Abraham was not really looking for this city. The second approach amounts to the same thing, attributing ambiguity to Abraham. He did not really understand what he's looking for, meaning he was not really looking for the city. The third approach is superior, taking the text as describing an actuality. Take the text at face value and say that Abraham was indeed looking for the heavenly city. This is the way I take the text, and this is the way I defend it at length in this book. One writer, for example, Baker, says, although the Lord had promised earthly possession of the land of Canaan to Abraham and his seed, he, Abraham, well knew that his real Canaan was the heavenly Jerusalem, and that, in fact, he was but a stranger and a pilgrim on any earthly soil. Not only Abraham, but all those Old Testament saints as well knew that their ultimate goal, their real abiding country, was the heavenly land. These Old Testament saints were persuaded of them, the certainty of heavenly life in the New Jerusalem. So Abraham, these other Old Testament saints, were looking for New Jerusalem, which would be the reward city. Yates correctly says the rewards predicted in Revelation 7:15-17 are clarified in Revelation 21-4 as descriptive of the holy city in the final state. In that context, John was told these eternal rewards are for Ha-Nakan, the one who overcomes. In other words, the city and the rewards associated with it are rewards limited to overcomers. Pentecost, a well-known dispensationalist, affirms, of Abraham, it was said that his hope centered in life in a city, for he looked for a city which had foundations, whose architect and builder is God. That this was the expectation, not only of Abraham, but also of other Old Testament saints. Walvoord also affirms, Abraham and his descendants, who died in the Old Testament, did not receive the promises, and in fact were seeking a heavenly city. It is evident from these verses that the hope, which was Abraham's in resurrection, had to do with a heavenly city rather than an earthly kingdom. So here we have two well-known dispensationalists, Pentecost and Walvoord, who, despite the strong dispensational acknowledgement that the Jews are promised an earthly kingdom, here affirm that Abraham was instead looking for a heavenly city. Where did Abraham get this expectation? Jewish apocalyptic thought affirms that God showed the city to Abraham. Here's a text from 2 Baruch 4:1-4. And the Lord said to me, this city will be delivered up for a time, and the people will be chastened for a time, and the world will not be forgotten. Or do you think that this is the city of which I said, on the palms of my hand I have carved you? It is not this building that is in your midst now. It is that which will be revealed with me, that was already prepared from the moment that I decided to create paradise. He's talking about New Jerusalem here. And I showed it to Adam. before he sinned. But when he transgressed the commandment, it was taken away from him, as also paradise. After these things, I showed it to my servant Abraham in the night between the portions of the victims. And again, I showed it also to Moses on Mount Sinai, where I showed him the likeness of the tabernacle and all its vessels. So according to this Jewish apocalyptic thought, God has shown this city to Adam, to Abraham, and to Moses. Literally to Adam, literally to Moses, and Abraham saw it in a vision. The early church fathers believed that these Jewish legends, that the Jewish people had been able to see the city in the sky, were true. Whether Abraham literally saw the city at a distance, or just saw it through the eyes of faith based on the testimony of others, is impossible to determine with dogmatic certainty. Even so, we can affirm that Abraham did see the city in one capacity or another, literally or in a vision, for example. Abraham knew what he was looking for. He was looking for the heavenly city. For that matter, so did Moses. Moses was looking for the heavenly city. And the writer of Hebrews says he was looking for it as a reward, considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. According to Jewish legend, Moses saw this reward city just before he died. According to Jewish text, he saw it even earlier at Mount Sinai. I believe that he and the elders ate there at that time, as he cryptically indicates in Exodus 24:9-11. The Jewish people knew about the heavenly city. And frankly, since the pyramids were probably based on this heavenly city, the entire world evidently knew about this heavenly city. In that case, it was no more necessary for Moses to comment on the heavenly city in his writing than for him to comment on the Great Pyramid. As sojourners in the land of Egypt, he and his readers were well acquainted with both the Great Pyramid and its heavenly pyramidal archetype. The world knew about the pyramids, the world knew about the heavenly city. So did Moses and his people. But then, I postulate that God gave a gag order when Moses was writing about the heavenly city. We have this little excerpt in Exodus 24:9-11, which says, Then Moses went up with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be a pavement of sapphire as clear as the sky itself. Yet he did not stretch out his hand against the nobles of the sons of Israel, and they beheld God, and they ate and drank. So here Moses, and amazingly 70 of the elders of Israel, go up with Moses on the mountain, have dinner with God, and all we get is a description of the floor. Why would Moses not give us other information? I believe he was under a gag order. My postulation is that God, as a master strategist, had very good reasons for giving a gag order about the heavenly city, after which Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses, and Old Testament heroes of faith were seeking. One reason would be for the sake of progressive revelation. Also consider that when Jesus came preaching about the kingdom of heaven being at hand, they expected an earthly kingdom, and thus misconstrued his offer of a heavenly kingdom. By putting a damper on information regarding the heavenly city, after the heavenly city was taken from view, the expectation of the world was focused more so on the here and now, the earthly kingdom. The Jewish people focused more so on the earthly kingdom, so that by the time Jesus came, their focus was almost exclusively on the earthly kingdom. They had, for the most part, forgotten about the heavenly kingdom. Their focus was on the earthly kingdom rather than the heavenly kingdom. And therefore they misconstrued Jesus' offer of a heavenly kingdom, and this led to his crucifixion. By focusing exclusively on the earthly Jerusalem, the general populace and leadership, by and large, failed to perceive the significance of Jesus' heavenly message, which was tied to the heavenly city. This resulted in the division among Jesus' hearers, leading to his crucifixion. So God gave a gag order, knowing that in due time it would lead to Jesus' crucifixion. The natural inference is that Abraham had two progenies, two groups of descendants. In the text in Genesis, it talks about him having descendants as the stars of heaven and the sand of the seashore. So in this illustration, I'm picturing Abraham walking along by the sand of the sea, and he realizes that he has celestial descendants who, like him, will qualify for the heavenly city, and he has other descendants, terrestrial descendants, natural Jews, who will qualify to inherit the earthly kingdom. And some other writers have postulated this as well. For example, this writer says, to Israel, God made earthly promises. To the church, he made heavenly promises. So Jews get the earthly promises, church get the heavenly promises. Both sets of promises originate in Abraham. God promised Abraham earthly, dust of the earth, sand on the seashore, and heavenly, stars of the heavens, descendants. Abraham's earthly descendants were Jews who believed in the God of the Old Testament. The heavenly descendants were both Jews and Gentiles, but primarily Gentiles, who believed God's message of grace. The stars of the heaven, the heavenly descendants. The sand of the seashores, the earthly descendants, being the Jews. Chitwood also says, further, many Old Testament saints, beginning with Abraham, look beyond the earthly inheritance to the heavenly. As seen in Hebrews 11, with reference to both the heavenly and earthly seed of Abraham from Genesis 22:17 and 18, those Old Testament saints who look beyond the earthly to heavenly will not be denied a part in the heavenly, though the nation at large has forfeited the right to rule from the heavenly sphere of the kingdom during the coming age. Those Old Testament saints who aspire to occupy these positions will not be denied their right to do so. Lee likewise says Abraham was blessed with two categories of people, one likened to the stars of heaven, and the other to the sand upon the seashore, which is also likened to the dust of the earth. If you know history and the prophecies regarding Abraham's descendants, you will see that they are two categories, one heavenly and the other earthly. We, the Christians, are the stars, the heavenly descendants of Abraham, and the genuine Jews, God's earthly people, are the sand, the dust. They inherit the promised land. Lee goes on to say, according to Revelation 28:9, at the end of the millennial kingdom, Gog and Magog will fight against the camp of the saints, the beloved city. The camp of the saints is the camp of all the heavenly stars, and the beloved city, Jerusalem, is the city of the separated sand. The two categories of Abraham's descendants, who at that time will be caring for God's interest in the universe, will be attacked by Gog and Magog under Satan's instigation. That will be the last war in the universe, a war between the devilish people and Abraham's descendants. Consequently, we have two inheritances described in Hebrews 11:35 through 40. I have color-coded the text in relation to these, brown being the physical land promises and gold being the heavenly city promises in that text. Not only does the evidence suggest that Abraham knew about the city, and that other people in the ancient world knew about the city, interaction with other authors would cause me to believe that Nimrod was seeking to launch a counterattack against the heavenly city via a stargate at the Tower of Babel, by which he would not only seek to access the heavenly city, but also the planet Mars. For example, Thomas Horn, in his book Nephilim Stargates, poses that these stargates were used in the past from the ziggurats, and that they will be used again in the future. Craig Hines' Gateway of the Gods also poses a related possibility. David Flynn in his collection brings in the Mars factor. You'll see Mars pictured on the cover of his book. Joseph Farrell, The Cosmic War. In my book, I've interacted with a number of his books, believes that interplanetary warfare was involved between the planets. Michael Lake, The Shinar Directive, likewise believes that as these stargates have been used in the past, so they will be used again in the future. This is my illustration from my book, Misthological Models, Part 5. This ziggurat is to picture the ziggurat used by Nimrod at the Tower of Babel. I've pictured a stargate at the top. Whether or not the stargate was actually visible does not really matter. The proposition is that the stargate was anticipated to be used to launch a counterattack against the heavenly city and to be able to reach the planet Mars. Several points I'll mention in regard to that thesis. Many early ziggurats have been discovered. From his heavenly city, the sky god had destroyed the earthly ziggurats on Earth and Mars. Now the sky god was calling out a special people to inherit the promised land on Earth. The sky god was going to create his own earthly kingdom. Nimrod built a new ziggurat from which to launch a counterattack via a portal. The portal would serve as a stargate to Mars and the heavenly city. The ziggurats on Mars were either constructed by fallen angels or pre-Adamites. In making these proposals, I am basically putting together the pieces proposed by other writers, like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, to deduce the most probable scenario in the past. It will also have far-reaching implications for the probable scenario in the future. In combining the information regarding these two progenies, we should look at the two cities, the New Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem, as opposed to the earthly Jerusalem. Lambert Dolphin has some very insightful comments in his web article in this regard. That's a picture from his website, from his web article. Dolphin asks, was Abraham looking only for an earthly city of God, or did he envision a city of God in the heavens? Perhaps he was able to foresee both. Very often biblical truth is not either or, but both and. This is very straightforward deduction that Abraham not only anticipated a city of God on earth, but it also envisioned a city of God in the heavens. Dolphin goes on to say, in summary, then, the Bible speaks of two Jerusalems, not merely one. As Abraham was promised a heavenly family, as numerous as the stars of the heavens, and also an earthly family, as numerous as the grains of sand on the seashore, so the coming time of redemption will feature a restored earthly Jerusalem, capital city of planet Earth, capital city of Israel. So two Jerusalems, one heavenly and one earthly. And Abraham, being able to foresee his heavenly descendants living in the heavenly city, would be able to foresee his earthly descendants living in the earthly city. Dolphin goes on to say, but there is also a great space city, a magnificent gateway city to the rest of the universe. And I will develop that proposition on his part much more thoroughly in my book. He goes on to ask, are the two Jerusalems connected? Probably yes. The temple in Jerusalem on earth may well prove to be the gateway for travel to and from the orbiting space city, New Jerusalem. I concur and develop this much more thoroughly. Multiple points of interest are proposed in Dolphin's analysis. First, Abraham foresaw both the terrestrial Jerusalem and the celestial Jerusalem. 2. Abraham was promised both a terrestrial progeny and a celestial progeny. The temple in the earthly Jerusalem will be a gateway to the orbiting space city. The orbiting space city is a gateway city to the rest of the universe. And again, I developed this much more thoroughly in my book. Each of these points is adopted herein, with further advances suggested as well, and developed more thoroughly in my book. You can visit my website at misthology.org or unconditionalsecurity.org or theouterdarkness.org. My website, you can click on printed books, And then you'll be able to see Misthological Models Part 5 among my books that are available there. And you can click on the title at the top to get a PDF version if you prefer, or if you wanted a printed version or a Kindle version, you can click on the cover of the book, which will take you to the book at Amazon where you can get the Kindle or a printed version.